Okay, we're live, Todd.
We are.
Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself first?
Sure. My name is Todd Thorson. I'm from Tange Cybersecurity and Technology, sitting here in about 50 miles due west of Chicago.
Oh, that's awesome. And I'm joining Todd. My name is Logan Edmonds. I'm CEO of TTS Technologies. We are downtown Columbus, Ohio, and also now in Portland. But anywho, wow. I know we're expanding, but we got a really cool headline today. Before we dive in, I was having a nice weekend, just chilling out, enjoying life. Woke up this morning, and this is the headline I ran into. NATO is calling on small business leaders and other businesses to prepare for a wartime scenario. You can read the article yourself at msn.com, but the crux of the matter is that I put the quote that I thought was most relevant to this entire article. It's at the very end. It says, businesses need to be prepared for a wartime scenario and adjust their production and distribution lines accordingly. While it may be the military that wins battles, it's the economies who win wars. Essentially, they're saying foreign adversaries such as China, Russia, and other countries are going to target businesses to inflict damage to the U.S. and other Western economies. And they already have, in lesser extent, in Europe with the Russian-Ukrainian conflict. Why would we want to talk about that, Todd? What's so big? What's such a big deal about them doing that? And what does it relate to cybersecurity?
I have long been saying in many of my discussions and talks that we are already at war. We truly are. And these countries have figured out that it's actually easier to wage war and more beneficial to wage war in the way that they're doing it, which is using cyber threats to steal money and fleecing money from the elderly, from small business owners, and from just regular people by tricking and fooling them. And they can make a lot more money. They don't need to hold a piece of land anymore. They can go buy it. And that's truthfully the new strategy. The bombs and the tanks aren't going to matter as much.
Well, and yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is as they said, economic output. Military, at the end of the day, any kind of military conflict is essentially shooting money at each other. That bigger budget tends to be the winner for a reason. And I think it's relevant for a couple of reasons. What you touched on is absolutely true. For the United States, half of its economy is small business. Like we're a multi-trillion-dollar economy. I think it's like 30 trillion something a year is what we're up to now. And half of that is just generated by small businesses in our communities. And nations know that. So there's all kinds of ways they can leverage that. Unfortunately, we're seeing nation state attackers. I recently had to deal with an event earlier this year where all the hallmarks of an attacker looked like it was a nation state, and the target was a 7-person nonprofit. The end damages was over $700,000 stolen from them. There's financial things. There's also ransomware. We've seen so many stories. I think it was just a few weeks ago, there was a port out in Portland, right about in my backyard, or Seattle, one of the two. I think it was Seattle, actually. I think about it. That was basically shut down because of a ransomware event, right? The operations ground to a halt. They couldn't distribute their supply lines. Cyber espionage is also a big problem. We are seeing, for example, you might not even be the target as a small business. You might be your customer downstream or your vendor upstream might be the target, and they're leveraging your identity to gain a level of trust they otherwise wouldn't have. The list just goes on and on. To your point, I think this is really alarming for two reasons. We're saying the quiet part out loud now. First off, that's where we've gotten in the world. The fact that a NATO chief is going and saying the quiet part out loud. We're going to end up in some kind of best case scenario, some kind of tense economic warfare with these adversaries. Also, as you mentioned, these nation states have realized they can get around a lot of the sanctions that we otherwise would put in place by just taking money and stealing it from Western economies. Iran and North Korea have for example, have a prolific history doing this at this point. Better part of a decade where they're just going in and raiding coffers because they can't raise the capital otherwise, and they use that to pad their military and economic budgets. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think that it's death by 1,000 paper cuts sometimes, right? So these countries realize that as long as they don't come on too strong and do too much at once, that they can just continue to do that indefinitely, right? It's like, why do the police not set up a camera and instantly write tickets to millions of people a day? Because everybody would slow down and it would cut off that revenue stream, right? So by just sort of doing a little at a time, right? Similarly, these criminals, you know, staying under certain thresholds that keep them off the FBI radar, they can continue to steal from everyday people, small businesses, and just sort of fly under the radar. What I find interesting is, and I haven't seen too many articles to discuss this yet, is there's a dichotomy between the criminals that want to completely disrupt our economy through nefarious reasons, but then there's the flip side where there's the people trying to steal money, which would imply they need a strong economy in order to be able to do that, right? So if a criminal organization completely interrupts our economy and disrupts it through, let's say, electrical grid or water table, you know, water manipulation, water treatment plant manipulation, things that are truly disruptive to society, that would hurt the economy.
Yeah.
Yet at the same time, on the other side, they want the strong economy because that allows them the easier.
I highlighted this section. I think this is going to be the biggest change here. I think a lot of the criminal elements that are the main levers that cybercrime is pulled on by nation states want business as usual to continue, right? They don't want to be overly disruptive. They are devastating, to be clear, but they don't want the easy money train to stop. What we're seeing now, however, is this is becoming more and more of a strategic asset for political powers. And this one, I love this reference, which is, it says right here is, we're seeing a growing number of sabotage acts, and Europe has seen that with the energy supply, Bauer said. We thought we had a deal with Gazprom, but we actually had a deal with Mr. Putin. And the same goes for Chinese-owned infrastructure and goods. We actually have a deal with Chinese President Xi Jinping. You notice the dependencies on the supply chain and whatnot. We were seeing political powers saying, look, we really don't care about business as usual. We have a political agenda, and we have these levers that we can push, whether for financial gain, short term, or disruption of an economic level, right? Like economic warfare is a thing. Disrupting supply chains, disrupting ports, disrupting infrastructure, keeping that down. Like there's a reason cyber warfare is the new form of warfare since the 90s, right? Like we've had, I think it was before the 90s. Yeah, I think it was like the 80s. We decided it was a new form of warfare. But what I find really interesting, Todd, this is a tacit acknowledgement. They're not saying we can protect you.
Right.
There's nothing in here that says the military, NATO, all this stuff can protect you. To the point they're saying, no, we actually rely on you, business leaders, to protect us, to win us this war in economic output. So you need to go start protecting yourself. You need to start budgeting for redundancies in your supply chains, for business continuity, for disaster recovery, for interruption in business offerings, right? Like you need to make sure you're resilient against whatever the enemy can throw at you because we need you to survive. It's sort of a, you know, here's your heads up, go do something about it. That's how I read this article.
Yeah, there really isn't a clear-cut answer in there, right? Other than just shining a light on this problem.
I suspect one of the biggest challenges we're going to start seeing in the field is a increased emphasis on business continuity and disaster recovery plans. Because when you start talking about this, where it's nation states versus nation states, the infrastructure we rely on in terms of technology, software as a service, internet, you're going to see things that you never thought possible before. A great example of this is today, I am dealing with this. I know you probably are too. Microsoft Outlook has been down all day, and it has been murdering my productivity and getting business done as usual, not to mention our customers. And there's nothing we can do because it's a Microsoft-centered outage, right? Like before, the idea of Microsoft going offline for a week or two, unthinkable, right? Never happened. I don't know about that anymore. If a nation state's getting involved, you might actually need to plan about, hey, what's our backup email and productivity solution if we can't access Microsoft for a few weeks? That's going to be a thing we're going to have to start coming up with. Whereas before, 2 years ago, people would say that's just never going to happen.
Right.
That's what I see coming down the pipeline. What about you?
And no matter what, it's going to cost more, right? Because everybody's going to have to find redundancies for everything, whether it's supplies, whether it's communication methods, whether it's location, whether it's delivery mechanisms, depending on what the company does. They're going to have to try and come up with a all scenarios. These are going to be, let alone the time that it's going to take to plan and implement solutions for this, right? I mean, I could easily go to any one of my clients today and say, we need to take a day to sit down and run through scenarios of what might happen during some sort of interruption, whether it be earthquake, flood, fire, storm, or nefarious interruption in business.
It's like you said before. Before it felt like a death of a thousand cuts, and this has definitely been a problem for the last half decade I've been working on. I know you have too, but now I think we're entering a new scary world where, yeah, nation states have been involved before up to this point, but just look outside, right? We're entering a very geopolitically dicey time of our lives, and this is a lever that is very much one that disrupts our economy, disrupts our way of life, without firing a single shot, without having to cross a single border. And for better or worse, we're all equally under the gun when it comes to this kind of threat. I've one of the things for efficiency. One of the biggest things that drives operators insane, as an example, is, they tend to want to standardize on one ecosystem, right? Like Microsoft, and go all in on that, or Slack and Google or something like that. And now I'm going to tell those guys, I get it. You're going to spend extra money, but you need to have a plan to dump yourself over to a different ecosystem within a short period of time. Because if one of those ones are taken offline for 3 weeks, how are you going to run your business? And they hate me for that, but it's not untrue. That's the world we're living in. You're only paranoid until they actually do it.
Right. Right.
So, I mean, here's our recommendation right now, Todd, and we can take turns here. My first recommendation is, if you haven't put in some kind of business continuity, disaster recovery plan for when some of your key systems, whether in the cloud or on your office locations, are taken offline, start now. It's a good time to start that conversation. Todd, what else do you think people should be doing?
Yeah, I think even focusing on the technology, but you have supply. If you're a manufacturing company, where are you getting your supplies from? What if that's interrupted? How would that affect your business? What if inventory levels on certain products? Do you have alternative suppliers? You should already have relationships with those other businesses. Just like in our world on the technology side, we shouldn't be scrambling to find another provider for a particular system in the moment. 100%. We should have that set up ahead of time and ready to go, even though there probably will be cost associated with that.
The risk framework has shifted, and you need to set those relationships now for sure.
Right, because in the moment you're going to be in line behind 9 million other people that didn't prepare themselves for the bad day.
Yep.
So you want to be one step ahead.
I think the biggest challenge, I think a lot of organizations are going to have to wrap their heads around, and I get it, right? Like, it's sort of like a boiling, what do they call it? The boiling frog scenario. The water keeps warming up, and it's hard to figure out when the frog actually boils. Budgets are going to have to adjust to accommodate this new risk. And this new risk, the upside of remediating this risk is you stay running as business as usual, right? It's not like typically when you sell something, it's like feature gain, right? We're going to gain something. Whereas this is more of the insurance column, right? You need to have risk mitigation in place, because the day will come, and your reward for doing proper risk mitigation is that day will come and it'll still be business as usual. You can still get away with operating business as usual at that point. That's your reward. And that's a hard pill to swallow when the last decade has been all about how do we cut things down to be super efficient in every single section of our lives. I get it. It runs counterintuitive to common business sense in a lot of places nowadays.
Right. And we used to sell on value, right? That was a big selling point for a long time, is we're going to make things better, make things less expensive, optimize things. We would sell on that value and ROI. And now at best, we hope the ROI is zero. That means everything's going well.
Yeah. And costs are definitely, unfortunately, with the current economic climate, going to be rising one way or another. So this is we're the canary in the coal mine telling you guys, look, we take no joy in this either, because our costs are going up too. But you're going to see a lot of the stuff we're getting ready to talk about in the near future, in the next few years, things that businesses are just going to have to do if they want to stick around for the next decade. And it's not going to be fun. And yeah, it does unfortunately mean some stuff will probably have to be cut on the back end of the budget for it. The good news, however, is, I would say this, I'm not all doom and gloom. You can be proactive on this stuff. And it all starts with, if it's a death by 1,000 cuts, Todd, I also say that cybersecurity and cyber risk management is the journey of 1,000 steps. You need to start somewhere. So I would recommend, and I posted this in my banner down here, I have a free self-assessment that we're giving out to anybody who wants to take it today. And it's basically a 10-minute questionnaire that can give you an easy checklist of places you should be looking at in your business if you want to start building redundancy and risk mitigation. Things like Todd talked about as well, though, setting up your own supply chains, enabling multi-factor authentication, please enable it. Actually having a catalog of what kind of software you're using and how it interacts with your business. So you know what business functions are relying on what. These are all great ideas you can do to start reducing your risk actively. Okay, well, I'm at 15 minutes on my side, Todd. I just think we shot for today. I'm going to go ahead and do a sign off if you're cool with that.
Totally.
My name's
Totally.
Logan. Oh, go ahead.
No, I said totally. Good.
My name is Logan Edmonds. I'm CEO of TTS. If you want to check us out, we're located in Columbus, Ohio. TTScyber.com is our website. Go ahead, Todd.
Great. Todd Thorson, and I'm CEO and president of Tange Cybersecurity. TangeTech.com. You can check us out and give us a call, and we'll be happy to help you start working through this stuff.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Todd.
Thanks. We'll see you, Logan. Have a good day, buddy.